You might think, man, I'm old. I've committed a lot of sin. Would Jesus really accept me now? Well, it reminds me of today's gospel reading that we had. As I mentioned in my last video, my wife and I have been reading the Gospels together every morning. The parable that we read this morning was the parable of the landowner. And in it, the landowner goes out in the morning. Gosh, Daisy's chasing birds. The parable of the landowner, Jesus tells us that the landowner goes out in the morning and hires workers in his field, offers to pay him 1 denarius. And so they hire on and they start to work. And then he goes out a few hours later, sees some more men standing around, offers them to come work in their field. So they come and work. And then he goes out a few hours later and sees more men standing around and asks them, why are you standing around? There's work to be done. And they say, well, nobody's hired us. And he says, well, come work in my field. So they come and work in his field. And then 8 hours later, he goes out and finds more men that are standing around, and he hires them to come work in his field. And so they do. And at the end of the day, the 11th hour, sounds like a really long work day, but at the end of the day, he tells his steward to line up the workers from the last to the first, meaning the ones he hired most recently later on in the day, put them in line first. And so they did, and when they got to the line, he paid them their wages. And the ones that he hired late in the day, he gave a denarius. And the ones he hired in the middle of the day, he also gave them 1 denarius. Well, of course, those that he hired early in the morning were thinking, oh man, we're going to get a lot more, because if he's giving those folks that came in later 1 denarius who didn't work as long as we had, of course he's going to give us more because we worked a lot longer, a lot harder. And so when they finally got to the front of the line, they too received 1 denarius. And so they complained to the landowner. They said, hey, you gave the ones that only worked a few hours the same that you gave us. We've been here all day. And the landowner said, friend, I gave you exactly what we agreed upon when I hired you, 1 denarius for a day's work. What's the problem here? And the workers said, well, we did a lot more work. And the landowner said, well, it's my money. We had an agreement, so I can pay whoever I want, how much I want. So go your way. Here's your denarius. And they did, and they were upset about it. It seems to me that the interpretation of that story is that, there's a thing called a cradle Christian. You might have heard that term. And it's people that were born into a Christian home and raised in a Christian family and grew up going to church all their life and gave their lives to Christ from early days. Cradle Christian. And then there's those, like yours truly, who came to Christ late in life. Gosh, in my 40s. And you think, wow, when we get to heaven, those cradle Christians who spent their whole life with Jesus are going to have it much better than those of us who came to the Lord late in life. But Jesus' forgiveness is unlimited. And even though we came to know him and to believe in him late in life, according to that parable, we're going to have the same salvation as those workers who started off much earlier. We serve a fair and loving God. And Jesus is confirming that in the parable of the landowner. So rest assured, it's never too late to have a relationship with Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior.